We will study a numerical based on the relationship between osmotic pressure and molar mass of the solute. Here there is numerical. I have written it on blackboard in front of you. I will read the numerical. What is the molar mass of solute? If a solution is prepared by dissolving 0.822 gram of it in 300 millidecimeter cube of water, has an osmotic pressure of 149 mmHg at 298 Kelvin. See, we have to find out the molar mass of solute, and for that we have given the different data. So while solving the numerical, first of all we will write the given data. What is given is, we have given the mass of solute, so W2 is equal to 0.822 grams. Then we have given the volume of solvent, that is 300 millidecimeter cube. This value of volume, that is 300 millidecimeter cube, cannot be kept as it is in the millidecimeter cube, because the mass of the solute is given in grams, which is in the CGS unit. So the volume must be also in the same system of unit. So we will convert it. So 300 millidecimeter cube is nothing but the 300 ml. And now we will convert this value of 300 ml into decimeter cube, that is 0.3 decimeter cube. To convert this value of millidecimeter cube or ml into decimeter cube, we have to divide it by 1000. So by dividing it by 1000 for 300, the point will shift 3 places to the left side, and the value for the volume of the solution obtained is V is equal to 0.3 decimeter cube. What next is given? Next we have given that the osmotic pressure of the solution, which is equal to 149 mmHg. So we will write pi is equal to 149 mmHg. Now what is given next? Next we have given the temperature, that is 298 Kelvin. These are the different values given. Now what we have to find? We have to find the molar mass of solute. So we write as, to find M2 is equal to question mark. Now we have to write the formula. For the relation of osmotic pressure with the molar mass of solute, we have the formula M2 is equal to M2 is equal to W2 RT upon pi V. Now we will go to the solution. I will substitute all the given values into the formula of molar mass of solute. So M2 is equal to W2. W2 is 0.822 gram into R. As I said earlier, R has the value 0.08206. and the value of T, that is temperature, is 298 Kelvin, divided by pi into V. What is the value of pi? Osmotic pressure 149 into V. What is the value of V in decimeter cube? It is 0.3. The value of volume is 0.3. If you solve this, that is multiply 0.822 by 0.08206, multiply it by 298, and the answer that comes out to be must be divided by the multiplication of 149 into 0.3. After you solve this, the answer that is obtained for M2 is 342. The answer comes out to be 342. And as you know, this is the value of molar mass of solute. So, the molar mass of solute is always expressed in the terms of gram per mole. So, we write the unit for M2 is gram mole inverse. M2 is equal to 342 gram mole inverse. So, the final answer of this numerical is the molar mass of solute is 342 gram mole inverse. Getting it? You will have to solve the more numericals which are given in the exercise in your textbook. Try solving numericals on such such type. The next point that we are going to see the next point that we are going to study is reverse osmosis. What is osmosis? You all know that osmosis is defined as the net spontaneous flow of solvent molecules from the solvent to the solution, or from the solution of lower concentration to the solution of higher concentration through semi-permeable membrane. That means in osmosis, the solvent molecules always flow from pure solvent side to the solution side. Exactly opposite to osmosis, there is a new concept called as reverse osmosis. That means the osmosis that is carried out in the opposite direction of the osmosis. So, reverse osmosis is defined as the process of flow of solvent from solution to the pure solvent side through semi-permeable membrane is called as reverse osmosis. That means in reverse osmosis, the solvent molecules from the solution flow towards the side of the pure solvent through semi-permeable membrane. How this reverse osmosis is achieved? We can reverse the direction of the osmosis by applying a pressure which is greater than the osmotic pressure. See, reverse osmosis. How can we reverse the direction of the osmosis? by applying pressure greater than the osmotic pressure of the solution, direction of osmosis can be reversed. Supposing we have taken a solution and a pure solvent and we have separated them by a semi-permeable membrane. In such a case, the solution will have some quantity of the osmotic pressure, and now if we apply an external pressure which has the value greater than the osmotic pressure of the solution, what will happen? The direction of the osmosis will be reversed. That means the solvent molecules will flow from solution to the pure solvent through semi-permeable membrane. This is called as reverse osmosis. So, the direction of the osmosis can be reversed by applying a pressure which is greater than the osmotic pressure. The reverse osmosis process is generally applied into water purifiers. You have seen many water purifiers, you must have seen at your home, in which the reverse osmosis process is used, in which the fresh water is separated from the salty water. To understand the concept of reverse osmosis, we will see a diagram how the fresh water is separated by the from the salty water. This is a container in which we have taken fresh water. We have taken fresh water and salty water. The two solutions are separated by semi-permeable membrane. This is a container in which fresh water and salty water is taken. These two solvents are separated by semi-permeable membrane, and to this container a piston is attached and there is an outlet for the fresh water. This piston applies a pressure on the side of salty water. This applied pressure by the piston is always greater than the osmotic pressure. So the condition is P greater than pi. The pressure applied by piston is greater than pi. Pressure is greater than osmotic pressure. Due to the higher pressure which is applied on the salty water solution, what happens? The direction of osmosis is reversed. Due to this extra pressure, the osmosis can be reversed. The pure water that is present in the side of salty water that passes through the semi-permeable membrane into the side of fresh water, and that fresh water can be taken out from the outlet. So, by applying the pressure which is greater than osmotic pressure, you can reverse the direction of the osmosis. That means by applying the pressure, the solvent present in the solution is made to flow into the side of pure water through semi-permeable membrane. So this process is called as reverse osmosis. In previous lectures, we have discussed the part of colligative properties of non-electrolytes. Among that, we have studied 4 different colligative properties. vapor pressure lowering, boiling point elevation, freezing point depression and osmotic pressure. Now in today's lecture we will be studying about the colligative properties of electrolytes. We will just revise or recall what are electrolytes. Electrolytes are the substances which undergo dissociation in their aqueous solutions or in their solutions. See, electrolytes are the substances which undergo dissociation. That means the bonds which are present in those compounds, they break to form the ions. For example, NaCl is salt, that is common salt. When NaCl is dissolved in water, what happens? The NaCl, when it is dissolved in water, it forms two types of ions by dissociation. First is Na plus ion and another is Cl minus ion. Sodium cation and chloride ions are formed when we dissolve the NaCl, that is our common salt, in water. So, such substances which dissolve in water and they dissociate into their respective ions are called as electrolytes. Now we will see the colligative properties of electrolytes. It is observed that the electrolytic solutions also show colligative properties, but they do not obey the relations like the non-electrolyte solutions colligative properties. So there are some observations about the colligative properties of electrolytes. We will be studying each now. The first observation is that the electrolytes solutions show colligative properties, but the solutions of electrolytes do not obey the relations of the non-electrolyte solutions. The first observation about the colligative properties of electrolytes is electrolytic solutions obey the colligative properties. They show the colligative properties, but they do not obey the relations of the colligative properties of the non-electrolytes. That means we have studied different equations for the molar mass of solute and colligative properties for non-electrolyte solutions, but those equations are not obeyed by the electrolyte solution. This is the first observation about colligative properties of electrolytes. Now the second observation is that the colligative properties of electrolytes are generally higher than the colligative properties of the non-electrolytes with same concentration. That means if we compare the two solutions, one is a solution of electrolyte and another is a solution of non-electrolyte having same concentrations, and if we study the colligative properties of both the solutions, you will find that the colligative properties of the electrolytic solutions are higher than the colligative properties of the non-electrolyte solutions, being that the concentrations are same. This is the second observation. All of you write down these observations. The second observation that we studied is colligative properties of electrolytes are higher than that of non-electrolytes having same concentration. As I said, take the two solutions having same concentration. One is of electrolyte and another is of non-electrolyte. You will find that the colligative properties of electrolytic solutions are generally higher than the colligative properties of non-electrolytes. Now we'll see the third observation. The third observation about the colligative properties of electrolytes is the formula mass of electrolytes calculated using colligative properties is lower than the actual mass. See, we have seen that there are different relations to find out the molar mass of the substance using the colligative properties, and generally for the electrolyte solutions, what happens, we calculate the molar mass using colligative property. That value comes out to be less than the actual mass of the substance. So we say that the formula mass of electrolyte calculated using colligative property is lower than the actual formula mass or the actual molar mass of the substance. These are the different observations about colligative properties of electrolytes. Now, the next part that we are going to study is, we have seen that colligative properties of electrolytes are higher than the non-electrolytes. So now we'll study why the colligative properties of electrolytes are higher than the colligative properties of non-electrolytes. Why are colligative properties of electrolytes are higher? Consider an electrolyte which is dissolved in a particular solvent to form a solution, and according to the definition of the electrolytes, we saw that when a substance undergoes dissociation in its solution, it is called as an electrolyte. So when an electrolytic substance is dissolved in a solvent to form a solution, the electrolyte undergoes dissociation. As the electrolyte undergoes dissociation, it forms different types of ions, positive ions and negative ions. the ions are produced, we see that or we observe that the number of solute particles in the solution goes on increasing. बघा काय होतं, इलेक्ट्रोलाइटचं सोल्युशन मध्ये डिसोसिएशन होतं. डिसोसिएशन झाल्यावर पॉझिटिव्ह आयन्स आणि निगेटिव्ह आयन्स तयार होतात. ड्यू टू फॉर्मेशन ऑफ दीज आयन्स the number of solute particles in the solution increases. And as the number of solute particles increase, the value of the colligative property of the electrolyte will also increase, because according to the definition of colligative properties, these are the physical properties of the substances that depend on the number of solute particles. And according to this discussion, you will find that the electrolyte undergoes dissociation, so it forms different ions. As the ions are formed, the number of solute particles is increased, and hence the colligative property also increases. Therefore, the colligative properties of electrolytes are higher than the colligative properties of non-electrolytes having same concentration. We will take one example. Supposing we have dissolved 1 mole of NaCl. But when this 1 mole of NaCl is dissolved in water, what happens? This NaCl undergoes dissociation to form Na plus ions and Cl minus ions. How many Na plus ions will be formed? 1 mole. Similarly, how many Cl minus ions will be formed? 1 mole. Here, before dissolution, the number of particles was equal to 1 mole. Now it is 1 mole of Na plus and 1 mole of Cl minus. So total 2 moles. That means the number of solute particles is increased. And as the colligative property depends on number of solute particles, what happens? The colligative property of electrolytes becomes higher, or the value comes out to be high. Getting it? Just now saw about the colligative properties of electrolytes, and in that we studied the observation as the colligative properties of electrolytes do not obey the relations of colligative properties of non-electrolytes. That means we have studied different equations for the colligative properties of non-electrolytes, but these equations are not as it is applicable to the colligative properties of electrolytes. So now we will be studying how the relations of colligative properties for electrolytes can be given, and for that the topic which we are going to study is Van 't Hoff factor. The relations for the colligative properties of electrolytes can be determined by using a factor which is given by scientist Van 't Hoff. So that factor is called as Van 't Hoff factor, which is denoted by letter small I. Now, what is Van 't Hoff factor? Van 't Hoff factor is defined as the ratio of colligative properties of the electrolytes divided by colligative properties of the non-electrolyte solutions having same concentration. So, Van 't Hoff factor is nothing but the ratio. Ratio of what? It is a ratio of colligative properties of electrolyte solutions and colligative properties of non-electrolyte solutions, but both the solutions must have same concentration. If the two solutions having same concentration are taken, one solution is of electrolytic substance and another solution is of non-electrolytic substance, and if we calculate their colligative properties, then the ratio of these two colligative properties is called as Van't Hoff factor, that is I. So now we will write the mathematical expression for Van't Hoff factor. Van't Hoff factor is the ratio of C. Van't Hoff factor I is the ratio of colligative property of electrolyte solution divided by colligative property of non-electrolyte solution of same concentration. This is the mathematical expression for Van't Hoff factor. Now you know that there are 4 colligative properties: vapor pressure lowering, boiling point elevation, then freezing point depression and osmotic pressure. Using these different 4 colligative properties, we can write the different expressions for Van't Hoff factor, which are given here. So I is equal to delta Tf upon delta Tf0, which is equal to delta Tb upon delta Tb0, which is equal to delta P upon delta P0, which is equal to pi upon pi 0. Here the values without subscript, that means the values which are given in the numerator, they do not have subscript. These are the colligative properties of electrolyte solutions, and the values or the colligative properties which are indicated with subscript, those are called as the colligative properties of non-electrolyte solution. But you must remember that there must be the solutions of electrolyte and non-electrolyte having same concentration. You cannot compare the 2 solutions of electrolyte and non-electrolyte which have the different concentrations. So while taking into consideration the equations for Van't Hoff factor, the delta Tf and delta Tf0, those are calculated for electrolytes and non-electrolytes, but the solutions must have the same concentration. These are the different mathematical expressions for Van't Hoff factor using the different colligative properties. The one more equation for Van't Hoff factor in the form of mass, but which is exactly equivalent to the colligative properties, can also be given as I, that is Van't Hoff factor, is equal to actual moles of particles in solution after dissociation divided by moles of formula mass units dissolved in solution. So this is the one more mathematical form of Van't Hoff factor, which is given in terms of the number of particles after dissociation and the number of particles which were dissolved into the solution at the beginning of the formation of solution. So here, supposing we have dissolved the 1 mole of NaCl into solution and it forms 1 mole of Na plus ions and 1 mole of Cl minus ion. So for that type of solution, this formula can be used to calculate the Van't Hoff factor. See, actual moles of particles in solution after dissociation, it will be 2 moles because 1 mole of Na plus ions and 1 mole of Cl minus ions. In all there are 2 moles divided by moles of formula units dissolved in solution. How much quantity of NaCl was dissolved? 1 mole. So moles of formula units dissolved in solution will be 1. So the Van't Hoff factor for that NaCl solution containing 1 mole of NaCl will be 2 upon 1, which will be equal to 2. This is how you can calculate the Van't Hoff factor using this formula of number of particles after dissolution divided by number of formula units before dissolution which was dissolved in the solution. The one more formula for Van 't Hoff factor can be given as, the formula is I is equal to formula mass of substance divided by observed mass of substance. Supposing you have calculated the formula mass of substance using colligative property, that will be the formula mass of substance, and observed mass of substance, that means it is already given in the experiment. So the ratio of formula mass of substance divided by observed mass of substance will also give the value of Van 't Hoff factor of that particular solution. The one more formula for Van 't Hoff factor is I is equal to M theoretical divided by M observed. M theoretical divided by M observed. What is M? M is the molar mass of the solute. If you divide the molar mass of solute, which is calculated theoretically, and the molar mass of substance which is observed during the experiment, if you divide it, if you take the ratio of those two, you will again get the value of Van 't Hoff factor, that is I. So these are the different expressions for the Van 't Hoff factor. Now we will see how can we exactly calculate the Van 't Hoff factor. For that we will take some examples. First example is of NaCl. Supposing NaCl is dissolved in water, it will form two ions. According to formula of Van 't Hoff factor, I is equal to actual moles of substance after dissociation divided by the number of moles of substance dissolved in the solution. Actual moles of ions किती तयार झाले? 2 झाले. So I will be equal to 2 upon how many moles of substance are dissolved? That is 1. So the I value for NaCl will equal to 2. Similar is the case for KNO3. KNO3 again it will form two ions, K plus and NO3 minus. Two ions are formed. So the value of I will be equal to 2 divided by 1, which will be equal to 2. Similarly, if you go for calculating the Van 't Hoff factor for CaCl2, how much will it be? It will be 3. Why? See that CaCl2 on dissociation forms 3 ions, 1 ion of Ca2 plus and 2 ions of Cl minus. So total ions produced after dissociation will be equal to 3 divided by number of moles of formula unit dissolved will be equal to 1. So 3 upon 1 will give you the value of I, which will be equal to 3. So using these formulas of Van 't Hoff factor, you can calculate the Van 't Hoff factor for the you can calculate the Van 't Hoff factors of different electrolytes by this method. So you will find that generally for an electrolyte solution, the Van 't Hoff factor is twice, thrice of the colligative property of the non-electrolyte, depending on the value of Van 't Hoff factor.